It's Tuesday, June 23rd, and this is now on HNN.
And now we're going up.
The nation's top infectious disease expert told lawmakers today the next couple of weeks are going to be critical in fighting COVID-19.
That's very troublesome to me.
This as we get an update from Governor Ige about the state's response.
I know as governor, I need to live with the criticisms.
The president is holding a series of campaign events in a state with surging coronavirus cases. I'm Natalie Brand with what task force officials say about his controversial comments on slowing testing.
I don't kid. Let me just tell you, let me make it clear.
New today, arrests have been made in connection to a deadly shooting in Pearl City.
Police presence is everywhere following unrest here in Washington. I'm Skyler Henry with a look at the measures nationwide as protesters demand change.
These stories, plus Apple is announcing its newest developments. Coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for watching This Is Now. I'm your director, Jonathan, alongside Ashley here. We want to begin with some brand new numbers from the Department of Health.
That's right. Health officials are reporting 3 new COVID-19 cases today, all patients on Oahu, bringing the statewide total to 819. Meanwhile, Governor David Ige says he will announce his plan to restart trans-Pacific travel in the next few days.
Hawaii leads the nation in the per capita rate of infection. We have amongst the lowest hospitalization rates and the lowest fatality rates. And so certainly the critics can raise whatever issue they want to. I'm fine with that. I know as governor, I need to live with the criticisms, but certainly I would ask the people to look at the results and judge for themselves. I will not put the health and safety of our community at risk just to look good. You know, there are politicians and many others that are using this pandemic to raise their profile, and that's really shameful.
25 states have now reported an increase in coronavirus cases over the past 2 weeks. This as the nation's top health experts testify on Capitol Hill. We got Naomi Ruckham with the very latest.
The nation's top health experts are calling the surge in coronavirus cases disturbing.
We were going down from 30,000 to 25 to 20. And now we sort of stayed about flat, and now we're going up. A couple of days ago, there were 30,000 new infections. That's very troublesome to me.
25 states are reporting an increase in coronavirus cases in the last 2 weeks. On Capitol Hill Tuesday, Dr. Anthony Fauci said he's concerned about community spread.
The next couple of weeks are going to be critical in our ability to address those surgings that we're seeing in Florida, in Texas, in Arizona, and in other states.
In Texas, hospitalizations rose nearly 60% in the last week. Governor Greg Abbott warns shutting down the state is not out of the question.
If those spikes continue, additional measures are going to be necessary.
The spike is putting frontline workers at risk.
I was kind of hoping, maybe it's just a cold or something.
Kayla Cordova, her brother and parents are all nurses in Texas. They all got the virus.
A lot of people need to take it seriously. I don't wish this on my worst enemy.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is another hotspot. Cases are spiking sharply as tourists visit.
Oh, we're having fun, not worrying about it, and enjoying the weather.
Dr. Fauci praised New York, which had been the epicenter of the pandemic, for following the task force's guidelines and bringing cases down. The city has made so much progress, it entered phase 2 of reopening Monday with outdoor dining available. Barbershops and salons have also reopened with strict guidelines. City officials say phase 3 of reopening could happen in a couple of weeks if the numbers keep going in the right direction. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
Police confirm a male and female have been arrested in connection with a murder investigation in Pearl City. HPD has not said when or where the arrests were made. Sources say an argument led to the victim being shot by his daughter's ex-boyfriend. This happened on Inia Place near Lu'ehu Street around 4:45 yesterday afternoon. We'll keep you updated. HPD is also looking for 3 suspects after a man was stabbed in the back of the head along Nimitz Highway. EMS says this happened around 7:40 last night near Floridec in Iwilei. The 62-year-old victim also suffered injuries to his left hand. He was hospitalized in serious condition. Police are investigating this as a robbery.
I just looked this up this morning. According to worldshipping.org, about 700 shipping containers are lost at sea each year. An incident off the Big Island is contributing to that number. Lacey Denise has the update.
Authorities now say at least 21 shipping containers fell off a Young Brothers barge off Hilo early yesterday morning. Each container is 40 feet long. At last check, 9 had been found and 12 are still missing. The Coast Guard says the crew of the tugboat did not realize the cargo was gone until they docked in Hilo and saw numerous containers leaning to the side. The containers that fell off were scattered within 9 miles offshore. Young Brothers says it's not sure what's inside the containers and no word yet on why they fell off. But one state lawmaker believes the barge was overloaded.
They loaded the container almost 5 high on the stern, and those containers were partially collapsing and falling off and hanging off the side of the barge. What potential dangers exist? What type of materials were in those cargo containers? Were they hazardous materials?
Young Brothers says it has hired a salvage company to recover the containers and that it is working with the state and federal authorities on the investigation. Now, this comes weeks after Young Brothers requested a $25 million bailout from the state to make it through the year.
New court documents allege Lori Vallow, the mother whose kids were missing for months before their remains were found, believed her children were zombies. The Associated Press reports that Vallow thought she was on a mission to, quote, rid the world of such creatures. 7-year-old JJ Vallow and 17-year-old Tylee Ryan disappeared back in September, and Vallow and her new husband, Chad Daybell, were found living on Kauai in November. The children's remains were found on Daybell's Idaho property earlier this month, and the couple remains behind bars, although no one has been charged in the killings yet. People magazine also reports authorities found the bodies by tracking the cell phone of Vallow's deceased brother, Alex Cox, who was there on 2 dates. Cox was found dead in December.
No tsunami warning for the state after a 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck the southern coast of Mexico. People went into the streets to escape swaying buildings. Check out this new video we just got into our newsroom of the damage. The experts at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center say the quake was not big enough and did not have the right characteristics to become a threat to us.
President Trump is pushing ahead with a visit to Arizona, despite the state seeing its worst coronavirus outbreak since the pandemic began. Natalie Brown reports from the White House.
Despite a surge of coronavirus cases in Arizona, President Trump headed to the state for a series of campaign events, starting with a roundtable on border security in Yuma.
Illegal immigration is down 84% from this time last year.
The president also toured border wall construction, one of his signature 2016 campaign issues.
It's solid steel, it's rebar and concrete inside the steel.
The president will speak to students for Trump at a rally in Phoenix this evening, expected to draw around 3,000. An organizer says masks will be optional but available, while public health experts still advise against large gatherings.
We're going to be making a speech to young people in Arizona.
Arizona is among 25 states seeing a spike in coronavirus cases. Those attending the rally have been asked to sign coronavirus liability waivers. President Trump is facing criticism for holding rallies amid the pandemic. 8 members of the campaign's advance team have tested positive for the coronavirus after setting up this past weekend's rally in Tulsa.
So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
As he left the White House for Arizona, the president was asked if he was joking when he made those comments.
I don't kid. Let me just tell you, let me make it clear. By having more tests, we find more cases.
Task force officials at a congressional hearing testified they have not been asked to slow down testing.
To my knowledge, none of us have ever been told to slow down on testing. That just is a fact.
Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee and former Vice President Joe Biden released a statement criticizing the president's visit to Arizona, calling it a, quote, distraction from his failed response to combat the spread of COVID-19. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Back here at home, thousands of concerned residents are part of a volunteer group that's cracking down on the state's quarantine violators. We spoke to the organization's administrator about how it all began.
Okay, Angela, so tell me how the Hawaii Quarantine Kapu Breakers organization came to be.
We had a young corporate millennial company that did marketing, and they came to Oahu to write out
the pandemic. They were all over the internet. They were on their social media bragging about riding out the storm here. They even had it on their website. So our members got really concerned. They approached them on social media, asked them to leave, had strong words, some educated them. Nothing was done with law enforcement back then. It was kind of the wild, wild west. And from there, it just kind of took off because people felt that there wasn't enough being done, that some of the rules were okay, but it just wasn't executed properly. And I think at that time, authorities were not on the same page. So now we're more organized. We started with a couple hundred people. We now have 4,000 in just a few weeks.
You have a journalism background. You were a TV news reporter and anchor, so you have the skill set for investigating and tracking down people. Talk about the process. How do you even start to find someone?
We will get a name. Sometimes it'll come. Early on, it came from social media. Now we're getting reports from neighbors and friends and in-laws and all kinds of people. We'll get some info on them and why or what they're doing as far as breaking quarantine. Then I do a deep dive into the internet and really search for them and see if they have a criminal record, what kind of a risk they are. Almost every single person that we've had has a criminal background and is not the kind of person coming to Hawaii to spend money. We gather that information, I put it into a file, I organize everything, and then I send it off to the Attorney General's office. They have a lead investigator that I work with. We're very close now. And I just go straight to the top. And when I hand in a file, within 24 to 48 hours, they're caught and arrested.
If someone suspects that, there is a quarantine violator in their neighborhood or, an activity, what should they do and how can they contact you guys?
We don't approach anybody in person, ever. That's a no-no. Also in our group, we don't publicize who a person is breaking quarantine unless they've been arrested. We don't post names or handles or anything like that. That's completely forbidden. If they have a tip, they should email it to us. And our email is quarantinebreakers@gmail.com. Once we get the email and information, we document it, we put a file together, we send it off to the AG's office, and we're done and we move on to the next one. HPD is very busy. It's at their own discretion whether they even warn or cite a person. A lot of times they may just give a verbal warning or nothing at all because they're just too busy.
Do you guys just investigate visitors or is it residents too who are breaking quarantine?
We investigate both. I've had neighbors turning in neighbors, family members turning in in-laws and siblings. It blows me away that they would turn in a relative or a friend. But I think they know it's right for Hawaii to really buckle down and be careful and not let it take hold here in Hawaii.
Protests in the wake of George Floyd's death in Minneapolis show no signs of letting up. We have Skylar Henry now in Washington, D.C., and he filed this report.
Friends and family members said farewell to Rashard Brooks in Atlanta today. Brooks was shot dead when police confronted him earlier this month. Two former Atlanta police officers are now facing charges. Rochelle Gooden is Brooks' mother-in-law.
And that's what he would want us to do, to love, not the love that he gave us, but to love one another like God loved us.
Dr. Bernice King also spoke.
Rashard Brooks' death will not be in vain, because justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
Brooks' death and other police killings have people here in Washington and across the country calling for widespread police reform.
In Minneapolis last month, former officer Derek Chauvin was seen kneeling on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes before he died. Chauvin has been charged with second-degree murder, but the leader of the Minneapolis Police Union wants to see additional video before condemning Chauvin and the 3 other officers charged.
We would just like to see what we are entitled to in our agreement, in our policy, is our officers' body camera footage. It may shed some light that we're unaware of.
In the nation's capital, protesters have been focusing on a statue of President Andrew Jackson because of his role in slavery and for forcing Native Americans to leave their land. Demonstrators tried to pull it down Monday night.
We stopped an attack on a great monument, the monument of Andrew Jackson in Lafayette Park. Numerous people are in jail and going to jail today.
President Trump promised long jail terms for people who destroy federal property. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Washington.
The remains of nearly 150 South Korean soldiers who died during the Korean War will finally be returned home. This morning, there was a repatriation ceremony at Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam, some 70 years after the men left their homes to fight alongside U.S. forces.
This is historic. This is the largest transfer and repatriation of remains from the United States of America to the Republic of Korea.
These boxes contain the remains of 147 South Korean soldiers who lost their lives in the Korean War. The Defense POW MIA accounting agency has been working to ID them for years, some since the early 90s. And the agency received more remains after President Trump's summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in 2018.
We've done DNA testing on all of these remains. We are also using some newer forensic methods called stable isotope analysis, and that's a method that doesn't determine your identity, but what it does is actually determine where you're from.
The DPAA says South Korea has already been able to identify 7 sets of remains, and they'll soon be returned to their families.
It's a great honor to us to be able to help our allies in South Korea return these heroes back to their home.
South Korea's vice defense minister will be here to accept all of the remains. They've been painstakingly packaged into 147 boxes.
This will make 239 total remains that we have repatriated, but this 147 is the largest. And I'll tell you, it's bigger than DPAA. This is monumental for our two countries, our relationships, our alliance, and the promise that we would never forget these fallen soldiers.
Ashley, what a cool story you had there.
Yeah, I'm glad all those families will finally have some closure and have their loved ones back home.
And I know Casey Lund was just returned from that ceremony. He'll have much more coming up in the evening newscast. All right, I want to switch gears, guys. Take you outside right now. The time is now 12:17. Temperature out there, 83 degrees. Here's Guy Hoggy with a look at your weather.
Aloha, we're 23 days into the hurricane season and the Central Pacific remains very quiet. No cyclone activity out there. However, in the East Pacific, things are very active. There are 3 systems that we're watching with a medium to high chance of developing into a cyclone. And at this point, none of them will threaten Hawaii. So things are looking good. We are seeing some windward and Mauka showers this morning, but most of the showers are of the light variety. So they're not going to amount to very much. You got to turn your sprinklers on today. And those trade winds helping to keep us cool. They'll be running at moderate speeds through tomorrow, picking up speed on Thursday. So for today, it's going to be a carbon copy of yesterday. Temperatures will be warm, up to 89 in Kahului, Maui, a little cooler over in Hilo where they're expecting a few more clouds. Now the surf's on the way down and will be dropping probably until the weekend. So not a whole lot going on surf-wise until the weekend. That's when we've got back-to-back south swells heading in, first on Friday and then again on Sunday. And then until then, we've got all this trade wind weather. A few more showers are expected on Thursday, and those breezy winds will pick up speed on Thursday through Saturday. Lighter winds due in Sunday and Monday. Now, we are expecting, some very warm temperatures for the southeast side of the mainland. 102 in Phoenix, might even get to 110. We'll have more details on air and online.
All right, folks, part of the show, we would like to check out what's happening online. I wanted to show some video and talk about a really cool discovery. This is Stonehenge. There's a big discovery there. Archaeologists in South England uncovered more than 20 prehistoric shafts. The monuments were found about 2 miles from Stonehenge. Researchers believe the shafts, which are about 33 feet in diameter and more than 16 feet deep, are probably Neolithic and were constructed 5,000 years ago.
Cool.
They think they might have served as a boundary for the area, sort of as that precinct.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we told you guys earlier that Hamilton is coming to Disney Plus on July 3rd. And now we know the award-winning musical will be rated PG-13. Now, the original Broadway production has enough profanity to prompt an R rating, but Lin-Manuel Miranda said on Twitter Twitter that more than one use of a certain four-letter word has been muted or covered up. If you're not familiar with the hit musical, it's the story of America's founding fathers told by America now using hip-hop, jazz, and R&B. I can't wait.
All right, I know I'm going to check that one out as well. Movie releases, though, are pretty much on hold for the theaters, or have been, but so there's been a big surprise at the box office. Guess what was #1? I'm showing it right here. Jurassic Park, the 1993 hit. It took in more than $500,000 this weekend, followed by another Steven Spielberg classic, Jaws. A bit of history for you. While the movie was filmed here during a certain hurricane. Do you know which hurricane?
Uniki.
Yep, I knew you'd get that one. Only a few seconds of storm footage was actually used in the production when it actually made it to the silver screen.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, and Apple users, heads up, the company announced its newest developments and product features at its annual Worldwide Developers Conference. Apple CEO Tim Cook addressed an empty theater. This was the first time the event was held virtually due to the pandemic. Now, the company's next big software update, iOS 14, will feature a new home screen that makes it easier to view more information and use multiple apps at once. And for your text messages, this is pretty cool, you'll be able to reply to certain messages in group texts. Apple also announced it will start making its own processors for Mac computers, marking a pretty significant shift in the company's strategy.
Very cool. We want to get right to Casey Lunn, who has got something cool to show us all.
I want to introduce Mary Crowley, founder of the Ocean Voyages Institute, and the Kauai behind us. Mary, tell me just a little bit about the mission of this vessel. You guys just returned to harbor here, 48 days at sea. What have you been doing?
Well, we've been cleaning up ghost nets and various consumer plastics out of what's known as the North Pacific garbage patch, though I always prefer to call it the gyre, etc., because I feel like the garbage patch makes it sound small, and in fact it's a huge issue.
Yeah, it really, the scope of this problem, and we're seeing the derelict fishing nets and other plastics that you guys are able to remove. You were telling me before we got on, hold on. Jared, hold on, buddy. I think they want to get, I'm going to have our cameraman back up here. There's work going on. We better get out of the way, Mary. But you said that in the hole there is almost completely full. You guys really have to come drop this off. Tell us what happens to those nets now that we're back here in Honolulu.
Yes, well, thanks to Matson Line and their assistance, they're shipping nets to Oakland and to Los Angeles. And in Oakland, we're processing the nets into fuel because, of course, plastics are a lot.
Yeah, and you know, I can't remember the figure, but when I was telling you we were out at Ford Island and they show us all those plastics and how much just the derelict fishing nets alone could power. So, Mary, you guys are going to set back out to sea, but in order to really continue this mission, what do you need?
We need more money. You know, we, in this time of COVID, we've been very careful on our first voyage and will continue. You know, we had the crew quarantine for 3 weeks. We had new people joining quarantine. We tested. But, you know, health of the ocean is helpful to our own health.
How can people connect with you? Because we ever...
Oh, sorry, Casey, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But let's get to our next segment.
That's right, let's get to some good news.
Oh yeah, good news time, folks. What's going on, Ashley?
Animal lovers, check this out. Gloria, the baby hippo, took her first plunge into the deep end of a pool at a zoo in France. She got a little help from her mom. Gloria was named after the hippo in the DreamWorks movie Madagascar.
We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Thanks for watching This Is Now.